We made it. One more game to go. Super Bowl 59. It will be Eagles and Chiefs. The Allen versus Mahomes matchup, and a guy that I think should be head coach for potentially a team where the Super Bowl will be played. Maybe Steve Spagnuolo just stays in New Orleans next week. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there all season long who have made it with us now to the Super Bowl couple of weeks. I almost said Super Bowl week. I always hate that extra week, but I do love Senior Bowl action happens in there. So we'll talk a little bit of draft in here as well. We're going to be breaking down how these teams were built, because big kudos to Howie Roseman and Brett Veach, who were the architects of these two Super Bowl teams. But first, we've got to break down all the action that happened on Championship Sunday with the Commanders and the Bills now going home after Sunday. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. And Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Well, we got the answer of who the football gods hate more between a team trying to win 3 in a row. Do they hate a three-peat or the Buffalo Bills more? They hate the Buffalo Bills more because it is the Kansas City Chiefs that are going to have an opportunity to be that team that finally wins 3 straight. Football gods still have an opportunity to do something about that on Super Sunday coming up, Matt. But let's start with the Allen versus Mahomes matchup. We'll take the Eagles-Chiefs matchup, I think, today a little bit as well. But let's start with this second game, the AFC Championship. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Got to be a rough night of sleep last night for Josh Allen with just another historic level of played good enough to win, still did not win.
100%. And, just off the top here, I bet most of our listeners and most of football fans were rooting for this matchup least. It's a little redundant. We've seen a lot of these teams lately, but I don't know that you can argue that they deserve it. It would have been great to see Lions, Bills, and one of those teams finally gets a Super Bowl, and those fan bases are incredible. But yeah, Kansas City goes every year, and it's for a reason. It's not because the refs love them or Taylor Swift. They just are always in control. They've been there. They've done it. When the chips are down, who are you going to bet against? Whoever they're playing, not the Chiefs. There's no question about that. And you feel for the Bills and you feel for the Ravens. These are great, great teams that are stuck in an era where there's just a Michael Jordan situation. I'm sure Patrick Ewing was great, but he was in the same conference as Michael Jordan.
Right. Oh, dude. Yeah. Hakeem Olajuwon. And
right.
John Stockton. Right. The Stockton Malone. It was awesome until they ran into the Jordan Bulls in the finals. It's like,
right.
That's exactly what's happening right now. And it's not just Mahomes. I want to talk about the coaching staff as well here. And really, Lamar Jackson sitting there watching the game at home. He's like, I bet he called Josh Allen and said, "Hey, I know how you feel." Because the same thing happened to me last week. I made the play. My tight end couldn't catch the ball.
Yeah, Kincaid
hurts Buffalo Bills fans the most because, and all credit to Steve Spagnuolo, and he got a free rusher in Josh Allen's face. But Josh Allen made the throw. He hit his tight end, and he just couldn't quite catch the ball. Not quite as bad of a drop as Mark Andrews from the week before, but
there wasn't weather, or it's a play you should make.
That was the play. That was the play that would be replayed and the signature play in Josh Allen's career. And he actually got up off the ground after he got blasted after throwing the football, and you could see the look on his face because he thought he made the play. And it
I
turned
got
out,
him.
yeah. and he's like, oh, he didn't catch it, and it hit him in the hands. Like that's what's crazy about this is Josh Allen. Go through all the stats, historical. Josh Allen was 4 touchdowns, no turnovers in 2021 when they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. He was 4 touchdowns, no turnovers again in 2025 now, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's just something that doesn't really ever happen. Except to the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. So let's go to those stats here because I have the exact numbers. And it is so teams with 4 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, 4+ touchdowns, 0 turnovers, 21-2 in the playoffs since 2020 or 21-2. Guess who those 2 losses are? We just talked about it. Bills at Chiefs 2024 season. January 2025 AFC Championship game last Sunday, and then the 2021 season, January of 2022 divisional round, Bills Chiefs, which was that phenomenal game we remember last time, and this game was very similar. And if you go all the way back even further, it's like 59-3, and there was one more team, and it was actually the 2018 Chiefs that lost to Tom Brady's Patriots. Was the 3rd team to pull that off if you go all the way back to like 2000. So it's just something that rarely happens unless you run into a GOAT, and then one GOAT became the other GOAT, and then now it's Mahomes doing it to other people when he got it done to him from Tom Brady in 2018, which was like that first year that Patrick Mahomes showed up on the scene. So, I mean, it's just so unfortunate because if the Bills were in the NFC, it might be Bills Chiefs in the Super Bowl right now.
100%. And I also lump the Ravens in with this. But, I mean, unlike the Ravens game where the Ravens made a ton of mistakes, I know box score scouting isn't accurate a lot of the time. But the box score really tells a story here. You know, one quarterback threw for 227. The other one threw for 233. You know, one team ran for 135. The other one ran for 147. There was 1 turnover in the game, and it was by Kansas City. That's the first game in the playoffs that the team that didn't win the turnover differential didn't end up winning. Mm-hmm. But time of possession's the same. Yards per play is 5.5 versus 5.8. One team had 5 penalties, one had 6. You know, they're both good in the red zone. They're both good on, third downs, pretty much equal. 4th down efficiency was good. Like, this was an evenly played game. And the Chiefs always end up on top. You know,
they win those games every single time.
They win these games every time.
It's unbelievable.
The one of the most ridiculous things going on right now is they've won 17 in a row 1-score games. I mean, Aaron Schatz and those guys will tell you, that's always going to come back to the mean. That's a 500 thing. Unless you're these guys,
Yeah. They're like, what mean?
Right. You're talking about it. How we play. So Sando put some stuff out today I thought was really interesting about he was comparing them to the Steelers dynasty actually. But one thing he mentioned is during this era, during this stretch where they've been a utter dynasty, where is it here? I'm sorry. They are the best at limiting possessions. So they have the fewest total drives per game of any team from 2018 to 2024. So they play it close to the vest kind of on purpose and are masters of it.
Unbelievable. And as good as Mahomes and Andy Reid are on offense, making the plays when they need to, Steve Spagnuolo's defense just
phenomenal.
Seems to dial it up at the right time every single time. I want to talk a little bit more about Steve Spagnuolo here in a little bit. I think he's the most unheralded piece. He's getting more credit now than he has in the past, but the most unheralded piece about this Chiefs dynasty that we're seeing unfold in front of our eyes, and could potentially a team do something about that after the Super Bowl and potentially hire Steve Spagnuolo. Let's talk a little bit more about this Super Bowl matchup of Chiefs Eagles. We got to talk Eagles Commanders as well next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do and somebody you can count on. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it so easy to post your job for free share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. So this is how it works. You post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions, then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And we know how many people are already on LinkedIn. You can find candidates you're not going to find anywhere else, because some candidates might not even be looking for a new job, but then they see your job, which is the perfect job for them, and can bring you together. And it's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find a high quality candidate and hired them. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let's talk Commanders. Let's talk Philadelphia Eagles. And this one got away from the Commanders here, and it looked like it could get away from them early, but they battled back. They didn't get that 2-point conversion, and then we talked a lot about turnovers last week, and then we started, they started doing things that were like, okay, we're getting beat, and then now we're helping the other team, and then the score got away. 21 points in the fourth for a 55-23 Eagles win over the Washington Commanders. And to be honest with you, Matt, I don't think either one of these games were, even though it was interesting how exactly they played out, we kind of described this in our preview as the way that these games will probably go. Like, great one for the Commanders, but the Eagles are a little bit too good up front on both sides of the ball, and probably will make it a little bit too difficult for a rookie quarterback to continue the run that the Washington Commanders are on. And we thought it would be a really close game with two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but probably Patrick Mahomes will have that magic and end up winning that matchup with the Bills. And that's exactly what happened on Sunday with both of those games.
Yeah, I remember saying on Friday that, when these teams play a third time, just give me the team with the best players. And the Eagles have the best roster in the league. That doesn't mean they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they have stars everywhere. When guys like A.J. Brown are kind of an afterthought in your offense, or Devontae Smith or Goddard, that's pretty crazy. They had center issues. It didn't matter. And yes, the turnover battle was 4-0 in their favor, but it was more a product of how Washington had to play to me too. Like, they're scrambling, they're doing everything they possibly can. They lose this game 9 out of 10 times because they're not as good as the Eagles. And frankly, when Hurts plays his best, which this is the best I've seen him in a while, they're an unstoppable offense. They really are.
Yeah, in a game like this, Hurts just has to, be efficient and not turn the ball over. They didn't have to ask him to do too much, and then when he needed to make a throw, he made some throws, and 246 yards. He made quite a few throws, 20 of 28 passing, 110 quarterback rating. Right, he was he was very efficient. But really, the thing was the big haymaker, and then obviously 2 more touchdowns. But that big run early was like, is going to be a day for the Washington Commanders. When you hit a 60-yard touchdown with Saquon Barkley, he ended up only needing to carry the ball actually 15 times in this game for 118 yards. 7.9 yards per carry, by the way, and 3 scores for Saquon Barkley. Will Shipley comes in, and he's 19.3 yards per carry. It was right. And that's kind of the big takeaway for me in this game and watching the Philadelphia Eagles, because like the initial response is like, oh my God, Saquon Barkley's so amazing. And he is, and he's a phenomenal fit with that football team. But that's what can happen if you marry a big play running back that has as much physical ability as Saquon Barkley has. And then also, he doesn't even get touched until he's 12 yards down the field already. And so we're talking about Steve Spagnuolo is the most underrated factor for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. That Philadelphia Eagles offensive line creating holes for Saquon Barkley. We saw it magnified in the NFC Championship game, Matt, and a stat to bring that home for our listeners and viewers. Hello to you on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Saquon. So the Philadelphia Eagles this season, they had, I had to look up the exact numbers because I'm like, okay, look, I know that Saquon Barkley had to lead the league in yards before contact, but I wanted to see what the exact numbers were. So the Philadelphia Eagles offense led the league in rushing yards before contact. It probably shouldn't be a shocker.
Right.
1,983 yards before contact. League average is 1,077. They almost doubled the league average in yards before a defender even touches Saquon Barkley this season. It's pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And you remember
and then look out if you touch him. 8 yards downfield for the first time, right?
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, and then when you get touched, oh yeah, it's a cornerback, or there's one guy in space, and then Saquon's like, oh cool, I can do the rest of this, no problem. And
No
guess
problem.
what? Nobody can catch me either when I get there. So like, you put those two things together, and it's just unbelievable. And it's been so hard for the league to stop, and that's why Saquon had the season he had. Remember that the 255-yard rushing game by Saquon Barkley in November. 213 of those rushing yards that day were before contact. And it felt like that in this game. Obviously, he didn't need to go for 255 yards. But the way that the Eagles have dominated teams up front, that's why they are here right now.
Yep, 100%. I mean, I talk about this around here. You have to compete with the superhero quarterbacks, and we talked about that in the first segment. Your only chance is to have a team like this. You know what I mean? With a good quarterback, maybe a running quarterback, a physically minded guy, and be ridiculous everywhere else, especially with the offensive line. The the cherry on top, of course, is Barkley, which was a perfect way to fill out the room, so to speak. And even just the start of the game. I mean, Washington had an 18-play drive to start the game. And then they hand it to Barkley for one play, and he takes it to the house and ties it up. Like the explosiveness they have in the passing game as well as the run game, I think you can compete with the Mahomes of the world. Maybe I'll be proven wrong in 2 weeks. Who knows? But, the way they're constructed, which is really hard to do, and I know we'll talk about that and give these GMs credit and all that over the next couple of weeks, is really, to me, your only chance. And I thought Washington had a good game plan, and their offense was aggressive, and they faked a punt, and they played the way you want to see. They go for it on fourth down, and their quarterback's super exciting. And then they got blown out,
Yeah. And they might have needed to start that earlier, that first drive,
Yeah.
I mean, and they had the ball first. So they, if they would have seen Saquon go for 60 on the first play and the Eagles had the ball first, then they had the ball, they'd have been like, yeah, I don't know if field goals are going to cut it. Let's go for it on fourth down there too. But they kicked that field goal after that long first drive. Then they're already down 7-3 after one play of the Eagles having the football. It's like, man, the field goals aren't going to cut it today for you guys. But I mean, phenomenal season for the Washington Commanders.
Absolutely.
And, I think the big takeaway here too is with the Bills and the Commanders, these teams were supposed to not quite be there yet this year. Like the Bills were supposed to there was a transition year for the Bills. They were supposed to take a step back, and they still got here. And the Commanders, obviously, rookie quarterback. Are you kidding me? In the NFC Championship game, new regime, new ownership, all the way down. I mean, these teams on paper should be better next year, and so that's what you hang your hat on for those two franchises, I think, right now.
Yep. Well, Buffalo worries me just because they have all kinds of cap issues, and we'll do post-mortems on these teams too going forward. But Washington, it's like, wow, everything they touched turned to gold. They reinvented their defense, quarterback, coaching staff, all that good stuff. Now their O-line got overwhelmed yesterday, but that's fixable. I mean, I thought it was going to be one of the worst O-lines in the league, and overall they had a good year up front. And they also didn't have their best guy against Jalen Carter, who was a total superstar. And give these Georgia guys credits in that front for the Eagles. They're starting to really shine.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned it because like Chris Jones and Jalen Carter, and like when you have that guy, and not only like good personnel, two of the best defense coordinators in the NFL for the Eagles and the Chiefs in Vic Fangio and Steve Spagnuolo, but you have that guy who's like, hey, we need one guy who can win right now on this down. And guess what? Chris Jones wins every single time they need that to happen. Jalen Carter's like becoming that guy for the Eagles as well.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up because there was a point I wanted to make about the previous one. Like, is Jones the best effort guy every snap? No, he really isn't. And I don't think they care one bit. We just need you in certain times, bring 100% on 3rd and 8 or playoffs. And hey, Kelsey's that way too. And, they did this without Kelsey, by the way. I mean, on a down day by Kelsey, it didn't even matter. But to me, I said this a bunch about the Packers after they got eliminated. The Bills are kind of in the same mold, except they have an awesome quarterback. Like, who's their closer, their finisher, their scary dude on either side of the ball? Where's your Randy Moss, your Tyreek Hill, your Jalen Carter, your Myles Garrett, your Lawrence Taylor, the guy that just really shines and nobody has an answer for. And they tried to do that with Von Miller, and to their credit, and that didn't really work out.
Yeah, the Rams did it with Von Miller, and then they got to Buffalo, and it was like, I might have been a little too late.
Yeah, we'll broke it down. Yeah.
And yeah, you had the rookie, I was going to say first rounder, early second rounder in Keon Coleman. He's 1 for 12 yards. Dalton Kincaid should be like that whoopee for Josh Allen. He hasn't quite become that. He had the drop. He was only 2 for 13. Like the big play guy for them was Mac Hollins. Like, man, if Mac Hollins wasn't out there making plays, and so, not to disrespect Mac Hollins, he's a nice player, but they do need a closer on the offensive side of the ball. Do you buy that the Bills abandoned the run? There was some success there. Like James Cook had a nice line.
Great.
Should they have gone to James Cook?
I didn't have a huge problem with it in real time, to be honest with you. I thought they were balanced, and I just want Allen controlling things no matter what. But I thought Cook, and they talked about this a lot. I mean, one of the most underrated backs in the league. I mean, he might be a top 5 back right now. And I don't think they got away from him too much, but I do see what you're saying. I mean, to their credit, they tried to trade. They did trade for Amari Cooper, and he's kind of not fit in and had injuries. And not that he's Randy Moss either, but I heard some people being critical of him this morning. I forget what podcast I was listening to. That, hey, you traded out of the Worthy pick for Coleman. Yeah, Worthy would be nice, and it looks like he's having a better year than Coleman. But I didn't kill them at the time. Like, oh, you helped the Chiefs, and you could have had that guy. I don't think he's that player either.
And Worthy was the leading receiver for the Chiefs in that game. He was 6 for 85, a touchdown.
Come on, well,
but it wasn't like, oh man, Worthy's a problem. They can't do anything about him. If you just swapped Coleman and Worthy
might be the same.
For 12 yards, and Coleman might have had 6 for 85.
So
I don't
give him Malik Neighbors or Harrison or
it was interesting that this was the game where Worthy was like the leading receiver, and it was the Bills that they traded up with and.
Yeah, so I understand the criticism, but that's a little harsh. I just think the Bills are a step behind, and that's he may end up going to the Hall of Fame for all the success he's had as a head coach, even if he doesn't win a Super Bowl. Who knows? But their coaching staff, to me, seems like a step behind the Chiefs. But that's get in line. So is 30 other ones. Right?
Have a step behind in a few too many spots.
Yep.
But I like your idea about a closer. Let's find a closer for the Buffalo Bills.
Who's a superstar? Can you pry Myles Garrett away for 3 firsts, or give me the best receiver on the planet, or whatever?
Absolutely. All right, I want to talk about Steve Spagnuolo and why he should be a head coach in 2025 next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, Eagles, Chiefs, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on all the action. So many Super Bowl props. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds. So if you feel like you got a better feel on it, and you know what's going to happen in the second half at halftime, you can do that as well and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, it's a little icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official Super Bowl 59 partner. Okay, kudos to Steve Spagnuolo. I know he said, because there's some thought out there, and I've kind of had some arguments with some folks that, oh no, he's got such a great job and he's winning rings and he's well compensated. And why would you leave that job? You don't want to become a head coach. He doesn't even want to become a head coach. He just wants to be a defensive coordinator the rest of his career. And he has said publicly that that's not the case, that he wants a head coach job, and he's interviewed for some head coach positions in this hiring cycle and has as well in the past. And I thought he was phenomenal. Again, he's been phenomenal throughout this run for the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, as much for him as I think he deserves a shot to be head coach one more time, and he would not be the first head coach ever to be better the second time around than he was the first time around. Like you didn't quite work out for him with the Rams. can you do the rest of us a favor, New Orleans Saints, and hire Steve Spagnuolo and end this Kansas City Chiefs dynasty? No, I don't think it would end it, but I think it would make it a little bit more difficult. And we talked about Chris Jones. Chris Jones said as much. Chris Jones is like, hey, as long as we got Spags, we're going to be winning Super Bowls. And he's well thought of. Hire the man.
I mean, is Vrabel or anyone else that was in the circle more qualified? Yeah, I think no. I mean, he's the best defense coordinator ever, probably.
Steve Spagnuolo was a better candidate than Dennis Allen, a defensive guy that the Saints already hired last time. Spagnuolo would have been a better hire, in my opinion. And he's a better candidate right now. I don't know if they're trying to go, they might want Joe Brady. They might want who's available now. They might want to go to the offensive side of the ball. A lot of teams do. And I get that as well. But maybe do us all a favor, too, and just hire Steve Spagnuolo and see how the Chiefs do without him. Might be a little bit more difficult.
It's a weird thing if he truly does want it, because, yes, he has a wonderful gig. And if I were him, I wouldn't even be interested in moving ever, because I go to the Super Bowl almost every year. And it's a pretty great situation.
It's not like he wants another defensive coordinator job. That's
right. It's like, hey, Saints can use a new D coordinator. No, I'm good, But, a couple things, though, that just stood out. Like his prep. I don't want to get started on my tush push rant, but I saw way too much tush pushing yesterday for the fandom in me. I would love for that to be illegal. We can talk about that down the road or whatever.
Yeah, it's just not exciting football.
It's like rugby, it's almost like a different sport. But anyway, he's smart enough to realize Allen likes to hesitate and then go to his left. Well, he puts Chris Jones there, and they actually shut down a tush push. It seems like a small detail that everyone would be on, but nobody else is doing it. And, obviously his blitz call at the end of the game was just keep this ace up my sleeve until I need it. And he's done it so many times on so many big stages. I'm going to save one thing. I'm not going to empty my gun ever,
And that the corner blitz that got home, but it was like, okay, they're going to have some condensed split. And so I can play that corner in a spot where you don't know he's coming, and all of a sudden he's coming, and you didn't see that look, but it's condensed, so he can get there just as quick. In fact, is quicker because he's a corner than the edge rusher can. And it's just those little nuances and how he draws it up, and the ability to affect the opposing team, and in a lot of ways use their rules against them and get them to do the thing that they want them to do in some cases. And they did it to the 49ers in the Super Bowl as well. And so this is like not a new thing with Steve Spagnuolo. He's phenomenal. I do want to say one more note on Josh Allen, because he wasn't perfect in this game. And I know Lamar, got crushed because of a couple of turnovers in the divisional round. There could have been some turnovers from Josh Allen. He threw a few he kind of forced them, trying to make too many things happen there early in the game. They did not end up being turnovers, so the whole, 4+ touchdowns, 0 turnovers. He wasn't perfect early, but he was a lot better later. And again, he was good enough to win, made the throw, even with the Spags blitz getting home, he still made the throw to win the game. But Spagnuolo made it just difficult enough on Josh Allen, and the Bills made it just not quite difficult enough on the Chiefs.
My last nugget on Spags is a big thing I've been critical around here is Blitzburg turned into cover 3, single high, only rush 4, and sacks have gone down like 50%. And you can win that way. Don't get me wrong. You don't, but players love the aggressiveness that Spags allows them to play. They want to blitz. They want to come downhill. Leave me on an island. I'm up for the challenge. It's just a different mindset of the players. That this guy's putting me in positions to succeed, but he trusts me. I'm going to play fast.
Yeah, and really, Vic Fangio, it's similar because you look at what they're doing with Zach Bond, and you have these players that can do a lot of different things. And it's like, okay, well, over the course of the long haul of a season, you can have a really sound scheme, and you're bringing 4, and you're good, and you got to cover. You got your base system, and everyone's really good at running it, and it's simplified, and you can play fast, and you're going to be pretty good for the longevity of the season. But then when you play a really good team that knows how to beat it and throw some wrinkles at it in the small samples, which can make a big difference, right? And then it's like, oh, but the other team knows how to. The other team knows what we're doing, but we know that
and they're a playoff team and they
them.
can execute it, you know, right.
Once you get down to the playoffs. So it's like you get there, but it's like then you need that extra wrinkle. And Fangio's had it. Spags has had it. They got talent as well, but you know, the varied skill set of some guys and being able to bring Justin Reed on a blitz or being able to bring a guy like Leo Chenal, who's sort of like a rush linebacker. And Zach Bond is kind of similar, has done so many things for the Eagles this year, even though other teams couldn't figure out how to use them. I mean, I think that is so important this day and age. And if offenses are going to be more and more multiple and be like positionless on offense, you have to be a little bit more positionless on defense. And if the other team is good and knows what you're doing, they're going to find a way to attack it.
100%. You know, just even in a game like this, just give me 2 or 3, give me a few plays that Joe Blow, defensive coordinator, wouldn't have produced. You know, that maybe it's 1 tackle for loss in the game, or that last throwaway, or a tip ball, or, you know, because of scheme, and never saw that coming. You know, it goes a long way in a championship game.
Eagles, Chiefs, much more about Super Bowl 59 and that matchup. How to fix, they don't need fixing, but what is on the docket for the Commanders and the Bills to get over the hump next year after phenomenal seasons for them, and how the Eagles and Chiefs were built as well leading up to Super Bowl 59. All that and more. Thanks to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you listen to this podcast. And Matt and I will be back tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson.